Hi, let's take a quick view of Dynamics GP. We'll look at an overview. We'll look at navigation, some simple reports, accounts payable, items in the inventory, and also sales invoices. Let's take a look at the navigation in Dynamics GP. The place to start is the home page. When you log in, you'll see the home page. The home page is designed to focus your attention on what needs to get done in your business. Let's take a look at it. In the upper left hand side, you've got a shortcuts area. Here, shortcuts are set up for you to allow you to easily get to the information that you want. I can put shortcuts in here to go to the places that I go to on a regular basis. It makes navigating a lot easier. Plus, I've got the area pages. Below that, you see area pages for different areas within Dynamics GP. So for example, if I go to the purchasing area page, I'm going to see everything about purchasing in one area. I'll see the transactions, I'll see the cards, which are the master file records. I'll see the reports, inquiries, routines, utilities, and setup areas, all in one area within Dynamics GP. The home page also has a to-do area. Up here I've got business alerts and tasks that have been assigned to me. Now the business alerts go out and look at the data in the Dynamics GP and bring me back the result. For example, I have customers over their credit limit. I can click on that item there on my home page and it'll open up a list of all those customers who are past their credit limit. Here's a list of my customers over their credit limit. So here's a nice list, but I can also drill down and see information behind that. So for example, if I double click on this customer here, it's going to open up the customer master file so I can get additional information about that particular customer. Plus I can also go to this Go To button up here and get additional screens related just to this specific customer. So for example, I can go to the customer payment summary inquiry screen. This gives me a lot of information about this particular customer. What I really like is this nice little aging over here on the left hand side. I can highlight a bucket here and I can drill down and I can see the documents related to that particular bucket in my aging. I can also drill down further and see the information for those particular documents. And here's the document. If I want to, I can email that to my customer or I can print it out for my internal use. Another area on the home page is the quick links area where I can easily access other windows within Dynamics GP or other information I have on my system. For example, I might have a Word document or an Excel spreadsheet that I can easily link in this area. Let's take a look at the cash flow calendar. This is a screen in Dynamics GP that shows my anticipated cash flow over a number of different months. I also have an area on my home page called My Reports. What I can do here is Dynamics GP has hundreds of standard reports. I can take any of those standard reports, I can modify them if I want to. I can also set up selection criteria to meet my requirements, and then if I go to this report on a regular basis, I might want to put it on my home page, and I can easily do that here in the My Reports area. Here I've got an age trial balance report. I'll start that up. It's going to go out and get the data and show me the report. And here's a standard payables aging in Dynamics GP. So the home page in Dynamics GP can be personalized to meet your needs, to focus your attention on your business and what's happening right now. One of the most popular reporting tools in Dynamics GP is called Smart List. To get to Smart List, you go to the Administration tab here. It'll open up the Administration area page. Then let's go over to Reports. We'll scroll down and start Smart Lists. Smart List is a collection of table groups that are put together to make it easy for you to get information out of Dynamics GP. So let's take a look at the purchasing area. If I open that up, this gives me a number of purchasing reports that I can select from. Let's go to vendors here and look at a vendor report. I'm going to look at the default vendor report here. This shows all the vendors in my system. This is a nice report, but what I can do here is I can take this report and I can add columns to it if I want to. So I just click on the columns button. This allows me to add columns to my existing report. And you can see I've got dozens of columns to choose from. Let's scroll down here and let's pick this one right here, the current balance. So I'm going to add that to my report. I can also promote it in the list. Let's move it right to the top. Hit OK. And now I've got a new report. It's got a new column of information. I can sort on that column of information by clicking on the column header. And here I've got information related to my vendors. So I can keep these as favorites if I want to. I can make those favorites available to everybody in the system or just myself. I can also add as a favorite on my home page if I want to, and the business alert if I want to do that as well. I can also set up selection criteria. So for example, I may want to look at only the vendors that have a balance. So I can go up to the search criteria here. I'm going to select the field I'm going to do the comparison on, which is the current balance. And I want everything that's over a certain amount. So everything that's greater than 0 is going to show in my list. So I'm going to make that selection criteria. And now I have a list that just includes the vendors that have a current balance. So I can save that as a favorite as well. I can still use that as a navigation tool as well. I can double click on this and bring up the vendor master file. I can also go to the Go To buttons as well. So Smart List is an easy report to use and to modify. And like I said earlier, it's one of the most popular reports because I can also run the report, but I can also move it to Excel just by clicking on Excel. And here's that report in Excel. So this is an easy way to get information from Dynamics GP into Excel so you can use it in Excel for further analysis if you want to. Let's take a look at accounts payable. The easiest way to get started is to go to the purchasing area page. In the purchasing area page, let's add a vendor. Go up to the cards. Cards are master file records. We'll open up the vendor maintenance screen. In the vendor maintenance screen, we can look up existing vendors by clicking on the magnifying glass. We'll see our entire vendor master file list. Just select one here. This is a typical vendor in Dynamics GP. But let's create a new one. So the first thing I need is a vendor ID. So typically I'm going to type in the first few characters of the vendor's name. And then I might add a couple numbers to avoid duplications. So let's do that. And then I'm going to enter the vendor's name. And what I want to do next is assign this new vendor to a class ID. So I'm going to look up existing class IDs and assign it to one of those. I'll select this one here. And the reason I do that, it makes it easier to set up the new vendor because there's a lot of information associated with that particular class that will automatically default into the new vendor. And then one thing I have to do is I have to have at least one address ID. So I'm going to add that address ID here, and I just need to provide a name and then the actual address. And I can add additional information if I want to, but this is all I really need. And then I can look at the accounts here. The accounts will default in from the class ID that I assigned to this. And I can have as many different addresses as I want to. Here I've only assigned one, but I can have as many as I want. And then if I want to email this particular vendor, I can set up the email here. And let's go to the Options tab here. If I've got a 1099 vendor, I'm going to want to recognize this in this screen here. So that's all I need to do if I want to set up a new vendor. So let's save that vendor. So next, let's enter a payables transaction. So I'm still in the purchasing area page, and what I want to do is go to the transaction area here, and I'm going to scroll down a little bit and hit transaction entry. This will bring up the transaction entry screen, allow me to put in a payables entry. And I can start entering information about this new payables invoice I'm entering. So let's add some more information here about the invoice. I can put it in a batch if I want to, but I'm just going to leave this the way it is, and I'm going to post it online real time. I can change the document date here, and this will change the date that it posts into the journal ledger. So I'm just going to leave that. And then I'm going to look up my new vendor. So I can do that by typing in part of the vendor's ID and do a lookup. And it's right here. So I'm going to select that. And then I'm going to accept the defaults here for the addresses and for the payment terms. Then I want to put the document number in. The document number is actually the vendor's invoice number. So I'll just enter the vendor's invoice number here. And then I want to scroll down or tab down to the purchase amount here. This is the amount on the invoice. So I can enter that amount here. And that's all I really need to do. If I want to, I can check the distributions here. Click on the distributions button. This is going to show me the general ledger accounts that are going to be used when this is posted into the system. Those look fine to me. If I wanted to, I could add additional distribution or change the accounts. So I'm going to hit OK. And then I'm just going to post this, and it's done. And now let's include that new vendor and new payables transaction in a check run. So there's a couple ways to do that, but what I like to do is go to the edit check batch routine right here. So this is in the transaction area in the purchasing area page. So I'll click on that. And what I need to do for a check batch is I need to create a batch ID. So I'm going to create a batch ID, and I can name it anything that I want to. It's going to ask me to add this batch is what I want to do. And then I'm going to need to select a checkbook ID here. I've got these set up in my system. So I'm going to select the one from which I'm going to write this check. So this is really all I need for a new batch. So I'm going to save that batch. When I tab off that, it's going to show me all the vendors in my system and any outstanding invoices that they might have. So here's the new vendor that I just entered. So let's click on that. It's going to bring up that invoice that we just entered. And I'm going to mark that as paid. And now I've got a check run with this one invoice. If I wanted to, I could add additional invoices by selecting the vendors and selecting those invoices. I don't have to select all of them. I can just select the ones that I want. So I don't want to pay that one, so I'll unselect it. So if this is my batch, I could save this batch right now by hitting OK, or I could go ahead and print the checks. Let's go ahead and print the checks. So I'm going to select Print Checks here, and this will go through the check printing routine. It'll start with a new check number there. I'm going to accept that, and then I've got different check formats that I can use. I'm going to select this one here, and we'll print the checks out. And here are my new checks. They're properly formatted. All I need to do now is print them out to my printer, and I'm done. And then last step is posting those checks. So I have some options here. I can void the whole lot and start over again, or I can reprint ones that didn't print properly. But I'm going to assume that they all printed properly. I'm going to hit Post Checks, hit Process, and I'm done. And that's the complete process for adding a new vendor, adding an accounts payable invoice, and then including that invoice in the check run and actually printing the checks. Next, let's take a look at adding a new inventory item. To do that, I'm going to click on Inventory, bring up the inventory area page, and I want to go to Cards and look up an item. Here's the item maintenance screen, and I can look up existing items by clicking on the magnifying glass, and I can search. Select this one here. So this is an existing item in my item master file, but I'm going to clear that and add a new one. I need to enter an item ID and then a description. Then I also want to assign this to a class ID. This makes using it in the system much easier to do. So I've got a number of class IDs already here, so I'm just going to select this one here. And now I've got all the information for this particular item. I can save it. If I need to add additional information, there's some options here. I can go to the Options tab up here. I can go to the Accounts tab and see all the general ledger accounts that are going to be used when a transaction using this item is posted. But I'm okay with this, so I'm going to go back and just save this as a new item in my item master file. Next, let's take a look at how to enter a sales invoice. To do that, let's go to the sales area page here. And in the transaction area, we're going to go to the sales transaction entry screen here. And the type of transaction I want to enter is an invoice, so I'm going to select that from this drop-down menu here. And it will automatically assign a document number. The next thing I need to do is look up a customer. I can do that by clicking on the magnifying glass here. I have access to my entire customer list, and let's just pick one right here. And then for invoices and orders and quotes, I want to put those into a batch. So let's create a batch here. You can name the batch whatever you want to. This information, this header information, will default in from primarily the customer master file. And now I'm into the detail area, and I can look up as many items and have them on this invoice as I want. So let's just do that. If I click on the magnifying glass, I can see my entire item list. And if I want to search, it's easy to do. Type in a little bit about the item I'm looking for. And it brings up this item here. Let's select that. And I'm going to pick the item quantity here. This is going to be automatically priced by the inventory system. And let's add another item. So I can type in part of the item number and then do the lookup. This is another way to do it. It'll bring me right to that part in the master file. So I'm going to select this and we'll just accept 1 as the quantity. So that's all I really needed to do from an invoicing standpoint. I can print this invoicing out by hitting print, or I can just go ahead and post it. Let's print it out first and take a look at it. And here's the standard invoice format in Dynamics GP. So we could print this out. We can also email it to our customers if we wanted to. So let's go back to the transaction. An easy way to look up an existing transaction is just to click on the magnifying glass here. And if you're in the right batch, that transaction should come right up in the lookup window. So I'm just going to select that. And this is the inventory transaction. Now it's in a batch already, so I could post it by batch, or I could take the batch ID out of there and just print post. But so I'm going to leave it in the batch and go to the batch itself. So if I click on this expansion arrow here, it'll bring up the batch entry screen. So I'm going to close this window here and just look at the batch entry screen. I've got a couple of invoices in here, and I just want to post this batch. So all I need to do is hit post. It's going to post all the accounts receivable invoices in accounts receivable. It's going to also update the general ledger, and it's going to update the inventory. And that's all I really need to do to enter a sales invoice and post it. I go to the sales transaction entry screen, I look up a customer, I look up the items I want to include that in that invoice, and then I post that document.